Hi, and welcome back to Inner Shelves. I'm Judy.
And I'm Michael.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about trails versus parks, round 2.
Trails versus parks, round 2. Okay, so trails versus parks. As you can see here, we have parks set up over here, and we have trails set up over here. So we're just going to go through the basic gameplay of each and how they're similar and how they're different.
Yes.
And so we're going to start with the objective or the overview of each game and how basically what your objective is and how to win. So do you want to start with parks?
So with parks, obviously, parks. So we're visiting parks and we're trying to collect the points from the one that you visited.
Right.
Yeah, so you're going from site to site to finally reach the destination, which is the parks.
Yes.
And then you will collect the points from the visited parks and also the bonus points.
Right, and taking photos along the way.
Yes, that's extra points too.
Yeah, and parks has these lovely, beautiful pictures of the parks that you actually visit.
Yes.
Yeah.
A whole deck of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's even more. We have some from the expansion,
Yes,
from the Nightfall
yes,
expansion
that too.
But whereas in Trails, you're not actually visiting the parks. The parks themselves are they're on the trail itself. But in parks, what you're trying to do is you are trying to collect... in Trails, you are trying to collect these badges. It's similar to parks in that with parks, you have to pay the resources that you've collected to visit those sites.
Yeah.
In Trails, you also have to pay the resources, but you're collecting badges, and there's badges here. There are also photos in both parks and Trails that you collect points with, but there are no end game objectives. Yeah. Some of the badges have end game objectives on them, and one thing Trails has for points that Parks doesn't have, there's a bird token.
The most
birds that you've seen. Exactly. Yeah. So some of the badges have these little birds on top, and also some of the photos have birds on them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, you count how many birds you have, and the player that has the most birds also collects the bird token. So that's a little bit different. Yeah. Okay, so that's the basic overview and how you collect points. There are other differences as well. For example, let's talk about... how it's set up first.
For parks, when we set up, so it's very cool because we have a whole site.
Yep.
It looks like a trail.
Yeah.
So
that's the trail, the path, right?
Yeah. So for parks, there are 4 seasons.
Okay.
So we set up 4 rounds, and as you can see, except for the head and the end, we have 6 sites in the middle.
Yeah.
So each season, we're gonna collect all those and then add one more, shuffle it up, and then reset.
Right.
So after 4 seasons, that means all the 3 are add-on. So you expanded those trails.
So the trail gets one site longer every season, and there's 4 rounds. And how does a round end?
You have 4 hikers. All of them has to reach the end of the trail.
Okay. And then that's the end of the
That would be the
round.
end of it.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And the trail will be different.
Yeah. So in Trails, it's set up a little bit differently. In Trails, we have the same. We have a path that's created, and these are shuffled at the beginning of the game and set up. But these are the only sites on the trail for every game. They may be in a different order, but these are the only ones. None are added in as the game goes on. There are no rounds in Trails. These are going to stay in this order for the whole game. So in parks, when all of your hikers get to the end of the trail, the round ends and it's reset and there's a new season. But whereas in Trails, when your hiker gets to the end, it just turns around and goes the other way.
Yeah.
But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So there are no rounds in Trails. So the setup is just the trail, but again, it has a trail head and a trail end.
And they don't move, right?
And they don't move, exactly.
Yeah, so just the 5 sites.
That's right. They'll stay in this order. Also, Parks has all the sites that you want to visit, the parks that you need to visit, which Trails doesn't have, so that's not in setup.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference for me, anyways, in the setup is this. Parks has has two of these inserts and these beautiful tokens, components, which are great. The sun and the forest, right? And the wild. These are just fantastic. Whereas Trails, the resources are just cubes.
And there are 3 of them only.
There's 3, and they are stone, acorns, and leaves. And they're just cubes. So that's a big difference in the setup. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other component I want to talk about is the hiker.
Yes.
That is very different.
Yeah.
Not just the way they made. As you can see, one is printed and one is actually carved the shape. So in Parks, you're partner with your friend. So each player has 2 hikers.
Yeah.
So when you play, both of your hikers need to reach the end.
That's right.
When you play. But in Trails, only 1 hiker.
You only have 1 hiker each.
You're playing yourself.
Yep, absolutely. So that's a difference as well. Yeah. Absolutely. Good. So that actually brings us to the next thing we would like to compare.
Yeah.
And that is the actual turn structure. What does a turn look like in Parks, and what does a turn look like in Trails?
Yeah. So in Parks, we play, move your 1 hiker and then your other hiker. But those hikers, I cannot end on a site that you already end on.
Yeah.
We do not share sites unless I put out a campfire.
That's right. Yeah. You're never, even your own hiker, you're never allowed to go on a site that another hiker is on.
Yes. So you have to put out campfire, which is this one.
Right.
So you can share the site.
That's right.
And then at the end of the round, you can turn it over again and then start over again.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And the hikers can only move forward.
They don't
can
go
never move backwards. And they can move as far as you want.
Exactly. You can even go from the second one all the way to the end just to visit the park.
Yep.
Right? That's very free, which on Trails, I know is very different.
Trails is different. I mean, there are some similarities. In Trails, you can move, your hiker always moves forward, just like in Parks. You can never move backwards.
Limited space, right?
But you can only move 1 or 2 spaces. So I cannot take my hiker and move all the way to the end.
No.
I can only move 1 or 2 spaces. But another big difference is hikers can go on the same spot. Right? So that is something that's a little bit different.
Yeah, you share.
Right. So in Parks, you have a campfire where you can put out your campfire to land on other spaces that other hikers are on. Something that is similar but different. In Trails is we have these canteens. And I know Parks has canteens, but those are different.
They work different.
These canteens are similar to the campfire that you can flip it over.
You drink it.
You drink your canteen, and that allows you to move as far as you want. So the campfire in Parks allows you to land on a site with...
You share space.
You can share a space.
Yeah.
Whereas the canteen in Trails allows you to move as far as you want. Now...
That's similar, yeah.
Here's the other big difference in a turn. As we talked about before in Parks, when all of your hikers get to the end...
That's the end.
That's the end of the round.
Yeah.
Whereas in Trails, we keep moving forward, collecting resources along the way. But when we get to the end, that's not the end. We simply, turn around and start moving the other way.
Continuously. Yes.
Now, that brings us to the next thing we wanted to talk about was... What happens when you reach the end of the trail?
Okay, so in Parks, very straightforward. They even show you on the last card here. So when you go to the end, you can either collect gears, which is those ones that gives you extra ongoing.
Yeah.
Or you can reserve a park. Any parks is showing here, you can collect them, but put it sideways because you haven't paid for the resources yet.
Yeah.
You can pay for it later.
Yeah.
Or you can visit a park, which is use your resources and pay for it, and now it's in front of you.
Yeah.
Upside. And then that count as a visited park, which has endgame bonuses.
That's right. That's the main part of the game, collecting the points from the parks, is by visiting them by getting your hiker to the end of the trail.
Those are very straightforward.
Exactly.
But trails... It's a little bit complicated, but more fun.
Yeah, this part is really interesting. I like this.
I love that too.
So as I said, in Parks, any hiker that goes to the trail end can do those actions
Those
you
actions,
said. Collect gear, which gives you ongoing points, or visit parks or
Yeah.
whatever. But as soon as all of your hikers are there, the round ends and you reset. Okay. In trails, we each only have one hiker. So as I said, when you get to the end, first you turn around
Yeah.
and you start moving the other way. You start
Keep
moving
on
backwards.
going, okay?
That's right. You keep on going. But what happens is these badges, there's 2 badges here, and everybody's going to have a badge in their hand.
Yeah.
Okay? What happens is, like the parks that you can visit, there are resources on them. And at that time, once I reach the trail end,
Yeah.
I can pay my resources to match the card, and I get that badge and put it in front of me. And that's how you collect your victory points. So in parks, you pay your resources to visit the sites. In trails, you pay the resources to collect badges.
Yeah.
Now, the cool thing is,
Yeah.
I can, if I have the right resources, I can collect that one, and even the one in my hand if I wanted to.
As long as you have the resources, get it all.
As long as you have the resources.
Yes.
Now, the other really cool thing that happens is this. Above the trail is a sun token.
Yeah.
So, if I'm the first person to reach the end,
Yeah.
it's pointing I get to do this action.
Okay.
Now, what this action is this is a wild bear, and this is not in parks. Anytime somebody lands on this bear, they get to roll the die, and the die simply has sights.
Yes.
And whatever site it shows, I move the bear to that site,
Yeah.
and I get to take that bonus action. So when I reach the trail end,
Yes.
for example, the sun is pointing at the bear, that means I get to do the bear action.
Yeah.
Then what I do is I move the sun backwards.
Yeah.
Nothing happens yet. But now the next person that reaches the trail end, again, gets to collect badges.
Yeah.
Now, they get to do that sun action as a bonus.
Yes.
Now, this is the really cool part, and this is not in parks, and I really like this in trails. Now, when you move the sun, this site becomes nighttime, and it flips over. It's the same kind of action,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit better. Okay? And now we both start moving this way. Okay? Then if we ever get to the trail end again by going back and forth,
Yeah.
now the sun moves again. And this flips over, turns to the night side, and we keep going like that until all of the trails are night. And once all of the trails are nighttime, that's when the game ends.
Okay.
But it's really interesting because all of the night tiles have better actions on them.
Yeah.
So for example, this one, the day action was collect 1 stone. However, the night action is collect 2 stones. So that is something that, whereas in parks, when everybody reaches the trail end, you just reshuffle all of the trails,
Yeah.
add 1, and start again. You do that 4 times. In trails, when you get to the trail end, the sun moves, right? You're trying to beat the sun, and everything is moving to the night.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
That's very, very cool. That makes it very different
That's right.
than parks.
Absolutely, yeah. So those are the main the turn mechanics and the turn
Yes.
structure. They're similar. You're moving along the trail, collecting the resources,
Yes.
taking pictures. Collect in parks. It's forests and rain and sun, whereas in trails it's acorns and leaves and leaves.
See you on the
and-
trail.
Yeah, I guess. So
Right.
the resources are different, but it's the same idea. In parks, you're collecting resources to visit the parks.
parks, yeah.
In trails, you're collecting resources to pay for the badges. Same idea. But that mechanic of turning over the nighttime is
That's
different.
very cool. Yeah.
So now, how does the game end and what happens in parks?
So how it ends is there are 4 seasons as we talk about. At the end of 4th season, when your opponent's hikers are there, both my hikers are there, that ends.
The game is over.
Yeah. And what we do now, we collect all the visited parks. If you only reserve it, it doesn't count the
right.
points.
Yep.
You have to make sure you visit the parks. And then you collect the points on the parks, showing right there. And you collect the bonus that you have on your hand. And also, You collect the points from the badge and also the pictures you took. Those
Yep.
are all endgame points.
That's right. Yeah, if you have the first player badge, you get an extra
point.
point. Exactly.
Yes.
And the pictures as well.
Yes.
Exactly. Whereas in Trails, like I said, once it's all become night,
Yes.
and then the last person to reach the end of the trail again to move the sun off,
Yeah, that's the end.
yep, that's the end of the game. And like in Parks, you collect points for badges. You collect points for pictures taken.
Okay.
But you also get a bird bonus for the person who saw the most birds on their scoring points.
Yes.
Now, the one difference is Parks has cards that give you end game bonuses. Trails doesn't have that. However, some of the badges that you've collected have end game bonuses on them.
Yes, and they're pretty powerful.
They can be pretty powerful. So the way you collect points is quite similar, Parks and Trails, but there are little differences there.
Yeah, I do like how when you take pictures, it's very different because in parks, I'll show you one. It's very tiny, just a one
Just a
little
little
token.
picture. Yep.
But in trails, oh, let's find one with a bird.
Okay.
Here, this one. There are lots of cards in the deck, and they also have birds on it.
Yeah.
So you either get a point. Well, this one is 0 points.
Yeah, 0 points or 1 bird. Yeah.
But it's your choice, right?
Yeah.
You can get birds or points. So you can get points and birds.
That's right.
So the person has the most birds, you count up
Yeah.
at the end to get this extra.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And the other difference is when you take a, like you said, when you take a picture in Parks, you just take one of those. They're all the
Yeah.
same. Pictures are different, but they're all the same. In Trails, every time you have the opportunity to take a picture, you can either, there will be a discard pile.
Yeah.
So you can either take the top 2 and choose which one you want and then discard one.
Yes.
Or if you like the card that's been discarded, you can take the top one. So you have a
Yeah.
choice of what pictures to take.
Yeah.
And they're different. Whereas in Parks, the pictures are all the same. They're just worth 1 point.
Yes. I do like this part.
Yeah.
It's the end game score point for the most bird viewed. Can I say bird viewed?
Birds viewed?
That's
Sure.
actually quite a lot of points.
Yeah.
Four points, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It definitely helps your end score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is Trails versus Parks, round 2,
Yeah.
the game mechanics. Stay tuned because we will come back with round 3, which is Trails versus Parks, our final thoughts. And that's going to be more of our opinion and what we
Yes.
think of it.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. So go ahead and get more games off of your nerd shelves.
Take care.
Bye.